Thank you, Eva. And thank you all. That's, yeah. So Jaco and me are very, very different. I always love that. And we are in dialogue with our bodies and words. And I think sometimes when you have these differences, the dialogue is even more alive, because there's this space of differences and trying to understand. So my presentation will be very different. I learned from John Schotter the word the first time I met him during the summer school about being poised. And for me, that became a very important idea. Being poised means, if I understand well, not to be totally organized before a therapy session, before a presentation, but to be open for what can happen, and to forget about theory, about a lot of things, and just be there and see what happens. And that for me became very important. So yes, I worked on my presentation. I made a totally new one because I was here. It will become clear when I go on. And so it's actually also for me new what happened when I prepared. So let's see what happens here. Where is the pointer? Yes, forgetting and remembering as an embodied dialogical space. I start actually with the body remembers. So I was, I think, 18. I was in love, very much in love, with a very long, tall man. He studied law. I thought he was beautiful, was very attractive, and I really felt, wow. And we walked, and we sat on this bench together. And then something happened. I was already happy, but I became very emotional. Tears came, and I didn't understand it totally. But I thought, okay. Then we walked to my home, and my mother was sitting at the table. And I told her what happened. I thought, wow, I was so emotional. I didn't understand it. And she said, where was it? What bench was it? And she said, oh, that was the bench I always sat down. I walked when you were a baby in the stroll. And I was so incredibly happy with you that it happened in my life to have this daughter. And I was so happy. And it was such a good time in my life. And I cried there at the bench from happiness. So this is a memory. I'm sure it's in my body. It was before language. It must be in my body somewhere. It happened. And it's about love. And it's about connection. And I think when we are too much into language and words, we forget about the body, the rich body. And the next one goes to the end of the life of my mother. She got serious Alzheimer for a long time. And I visited her a lot when she was in a care home. It was a loving care home, a small one. And she didn't know my name. She didn't know the word, it's my daughter. She didn't have many words anymore. At the end, she didn't have any words anymore. And she was always there, of course, when I came. It was in a room with also other old Alzheimer, dement people, men and women. And when I came in, I saw we recognized each other with our body. I saw it in her eyes. I saw it, and she always wanted to hold hands, always. So immediately she took my hand and we were sitting there. And one time I was sitting at one side of the table, and at the other side there were other people with Arthur, my love. And we were sitting there, and then my mother all of a sudden said, "This one is mine." We were laughing, and then at the other side of the table there was Lady von Hasselt. We saw her a lot, and she said, "And this one is from us all." So this is this feeling, this being relational from the first time you're born, maybe even before that in the womb. I always have had conversations with my baby in my womb, and I felt something then. Yeah, so that's where I start. The body remembers. And then I went to language, because that's interesting. If you think about remember, it's going into a membership again. Remember. If you remember, you go here in the group. We say herinneren. In Deutsch, erinnern. That's bringing it, here are the pictures, back inside. That's totally the other movement. And I think it's going forward and back. In Italian, it's ricordare or dimenticare. And that's more the record, the music that is there. That's, again, another image, another idea. And I heard from prisjećanje is here, prisjećanje. And then I looked, because I don't understand a thing from the Bosnian language. I looked, and then I got a candle. So I thought that's also another image. And it's interesting, all these images. And then I want to say, for me, remembering and forgetting, it's not a dichotomy. Because we forget things maybe for some time, and then they can come back. In the music, in the bench, everywhere. And of course we forget a lot, and memory is always a selection. We cannot memorize everything, it's totally impossible. But I think we don't know what's in our body, but what can be triggered when we have a trigger. So it's not a dichotomy. Sarajevo, we are here now, and the last days that I'm here, I'm much more aware how complex the context is, how wonderful the people are, but also how many sensitivities there are from the latest war, but also from other history. And I talked with people from here, and I thought, wow, there is a lot I do not know. And it's important to realize there's a lot I do not know. But I was here. Well, I will tell you in a few minutes why I came here. I just start here. I was here for 5 times, organized by Psychologists Without Borders and the organization with the name Admira. 1995, at the end of 1995, 1996, so just before, at the end of the war and after the war. And I can say it changed me. It changed my life, it changed my work. For me, being so in relation to the absurdity of war made me feel I need to do something in my life to get conflicts down, or to do. So I was already working with violence in families and couples, and that started because I was working in psychiatry, and I realized that such a lot of depressed women that were hospitalized, when we really had a talk and I really listened to them, they came from violent relationships. And I thought, wow, we are working here with the women, where are the men? Then we started to work with the men. And then I saw also how vulnerable the men were. And that's where we started to do couple therapy, family therapy. But that was the time about the same. When I came here, 95, I think I was working a few years with family violence, and then it really became in the center of my work and being. Yeah. So in the first time I came, the airport was closed, of course. And so we had to go to Zagreb. I was with a doctor. And then there was a jeep from the United Nations, and they brought us to Sarajevo. And already that was quite an impressive situation, because at one time I had to pee. Of course, I was nervous also. I had to pee, and I was not allowed to go in a place where they couldn't see me because of the roadside bombs. So I had to pee in front of the car, and they wanted to keep an eye on me, to notice me, where I was and if everything was going all right. So wow, that was already, so that's in my body, of course. And there was another time that was in the beginning of 96, I think, that they said, well, you can take the bus there and there, and we took the bus. It was snowing, and the bus got stuck and glue a little bit to the end. It was quite risky. And then we were there in the middle of the night in the snow, again with the same doctor. But this kind of risky situations, they stay in my body. And we found a way to come into Sarajevo, of course. You find your way. But it was, yeah, when in 1996, when I could walk around in the city, I made a long walk. I'm a walker. And I walked for hours and hours because I wanted to find a house without bullet holes. And I really had this wish. I was very determined. I want to find a house without bullet holes. After hours, I couldn't find any. I cried. It was a terrible experience, really terrible experience. Then we had the trainings, and there was no heating. There was no streaming water. There was, so we were always glad when we were there, and when the other people were there. In the beginning, it was even dangerous to go there. And then we had blankets around, and there was a lot of fur coats. They are forbidden in the Netherlands, but here we were happy to have them. They are warm. They can keep you warm. We were sitting there, and we, yeah, and you can see there was a lot of mourning, losses, a lot of pain, a lot of anxiety, but also a lot of connection. It was both and. We were also very much loyal, connected, we hugged, we laughed. We were very much together. We are here, we did it. And we were so happy to be there together. Yeah, yeah. And it was such a good experience to do that, to be together, also in silence. Also in silence, like Jacco said, yeah. But it was a very humanizing experience. Once you come together, things happen. We asked, one of the things we asked people to make a drawing of a safe place where you feel safe. And this image you can take with you when you feel afraid or scared, or you want to have an image of a safe place. If you have drawn it, you can take it with you. Nearly everybody made a drawing of nature, of a place in nature, of a place where I, as a child, I felt so well. And when I'm there, I feel so safe. Then there was one man, and he made a drawing of a wall and concrete. he was really, really, really decisive. And he told us, during the war, I was in the mountains in the front, and I was so incredibly cold. I nearly died from hunger and freezing. And I want walls and concrete around. That's my safe place, instead of nature. Nature is very dangerous, he said. It changed his whole image of being in nature. That's a dangerous place to be. You can freeze to death. You can die of hunger. That was impressive for me, because for me, nature is very important, and being in nature. This is a movie. Can you put it on? Oh, sorry. Can I? Okay, have a look. It's a Syrian boy, a deaf boy, and he experienced war. And the documentary maker, he wanted to share his story. You can see that in his eyes. This is his story, and he wanted the response. He wanted to share, and he also wants to share with you. So the documentary maker asked him if it is okay to show this video, and he said yes. And especially because he is deaf, you can see what we feel, but he is really expressive with his body. Yeah? And that's what we can feel as well. And it's very emotional, I think, for many of you to have a look at this boy communicating. So you can ask, what did we do in the trainings? We were trying to opening up dialogical space, and as Jaco said, it was mainly listening to what they wanted to tell. Everything was possible to communicate. And I learned how important it is to acknowledge the pain, the losses, the mourning, and the vulnerability. It's so incredibly important when people come to us in different situations that there is place to acknowledge it. We also did walk and talk. When it was very dangerous outside, we stayed inside, but we moved. When it became more safe, from January 96 on, we also walked outside. Walk and talk sometimes gives a lot of opportunities. Most of the time we did it in two. Can you remember, Jaco, that we did the walk and talk in Italy? We made couples of two with Peter and John and Jim, so our first great meeting, and then we talked about things, and something different happens. So I love also with supervisees and also with clients to do the walk and talk. And we made drawings, as you saw. We shared memories, silences, hesitations. There was no pressure to share. That's also very important. There is no hierarchy for me. That telling is better than keeping it silent. Both are possible for me. And so for some people, it's good to stay silent, not to tell, not to share, or to hesitate for a long time. And Peter wrote wonderful about that. We did body work. For me, if it is true that the body remembers, then we have to do body work. And I think from research on trauma, now it's becoming very clear how important body work is. And when it's only language, it's not enough. Bessel van der Kolk is a Dutch psychiatrist working in the States for a long time. He wrote about that, the body remembers. We did also singing. That came from the people here. They wanted also to sing. And some poetry. I think that's part of the Bosnian culture. Sing and poetry. Yeah. So I loved it. I learned a lot. I think things only happen when you are all learning at the same time. Yeah. Oh, and then there's a woman, I will never forget her, because there were American researchers, and they had the assignment to do research on raped women. There were raped women in the group. And, well, that's a story here. I cannot really, I do not have the time to talk about that too much. Maybe I will become very personal now, I don't know. But she said, she stood up, because she was asked all the time about rape, and I was asked, do you know another raped woman? Because they needed that for the research. So this woman jumped on her feet and she said, I am much more than a raped woman. And she was angry, being reduced. And it was so important for me. And now I thought, what picture belongs to that? Giselle Pellicot. I don't know if you know about her story, being raped by her husband many times, also her daughter. And she is proud also, I'm much more than a raped woman. Yeah. They helped me to memorize my own sexual abuse. That's a very personal thing. In one of the trainings here, I forgot about it totally. Really, I never thought of it. That's why I think that memorizing and forgetting are going together. So the women here helped me to memorize that I was sexually abused very seriously for a long time. And I forgot about it. And I think it's so good I forgot about it for years. That was not the bad thing. I could go to school, I could go to university, I could build my life. I forgot about it. And it was also good that it came back. It also helped me to become much more, because I think till that time I was a rational, cognitive person. I was thinking a lot, but I was not feeling so much in my body. It helped the remembering, the body remembers, helped me to re-own my own body. I'm very happy about that and also grateful to the Bosnian women that helped me to come there. Yeah. So why did I leave my safe place and family for a place of atrocities and war? Why? And also the people here asked me. They asked me, why are you here? Why are you here? I am born 1950, like you. I also was active for the Vietnam. Yeah. And then I can say that my father has a Jewish mother, so he is Jew. And the father of my children is a Jew, so the Holocaust is very much in my life. And I, with my parents, with my family, with my friends, we thought, never again. Never again. This should happen, never again. We were part of the pacifist movement with the broken rifle. Did you have that here as well? The broken rifle. We put it on our coat to show never again. And unfortunately, it happened again. So I thought, I had a feeling I had to go there. That's also my body, I don't know, but I had to come here. I had to do. I thought, also if I have to carry things or whatever, but I have to go there. It took some time before I could come here with Psychologists Without Borders, but I was then going, and I'm really happy that I did. So we have the 4th of May Memorial Day for the deaths in the context of war. And more people are coming in the recent years. The war is 80 years ago. And now more and more people come and say we have to, and also in the world now that there are so many wars around and so many conflicts and so many suffering and so many losses. So, and in the Netherlands, where I am struggling now, and I think it's in many countries in Europe now, we are worried. We are worried about Russia, Ukraine, about the Middle East, about Congo, about Yemen, about Afghanistan, about so many places where and yeah, Trump, of course. So there is we are afraid that democracy will be. We need democracy. We need it, I think. But now we have a dominant narrative that we have to build up the armed forces. It's the only way to protect our democracy and way of living. And the European Union reserved $800 billion, I think. And that money is not going to the work on the climate crisis, to care, to education. All money is taken for the military. And it makes me sad. And also when I question it in the Netherlands, I'm naive. So you have this polarization. Either you say, of course we need to have this military build-up and we need to do it. It's the only way to protect democracy. But if you question it, you jump to the other side, you're naive. Although I'm in the middle. I think, yeah, maybe it's necessary. Maybe we should do it. But I don't know. I want a dialogical space to question it. Yeah. And Hannah Arendt said a totalitarian regime wants to dominate the lives of its citizens in every way possible. To that end, it tries to mobilize the masses and fight all political opposition through the use of propaganda, terror, and racism. And now we can add with the use of big tech money. But it's not different. It's exactly the same. No hope? Yes. Okay. I did my doctorate research recent. I started at 68. You can stay living till you'll die. And I started my doctorate on practices of hope with the emphasis on practices. So, and that's very important for me as well. But also to understand, I would say, at the end, hope is a mystery like love is. If you try to define it, it's gone. It's a paradoxical place, Anke and Christina say, where we story what we long for and what we are fearful of at the same time. It's where we acknowledge the fragility of our lives. Hope lies in uncertainty. And the essence of hope is not that we hope for something, but simply that we hope. In the end, hope is untamable, mysterious, and wild. I like that. And it's very uncertain. That's Belgium. Patrick Delare. Rebecca Solnit is a big research for me, and she argues radically for hope to act in a troubling world whose future remains uncertain and unknowable. Hope means acknowledging and addressing the worrying circumstances, and at the same time focusing our gaze on what movements were and are hopeful and what is possible now. We can bring about change by acting. I agree there. And the other beautiful thing is also that acting can be very healing. Healing is not only about speaking and words, doing things together. So the first time we had the plenary about how to bridge bubbles, and we need the middle. One of research shows when you do things together, or your neighbors, it's much easier to go through the bubbles. Making meals together, construct something, have a project together, being activists together, whatever. So acting became more and more important in my life. And like Vicky Reynolds said, you can be a therapist and an activist at the same time. It's not a contradiction. Hopeful for me is this Imamoglu, this mayor of Istanbul that is jailed. And so many people, not only the young ones, all generations, through all Turkey, they protest. They say they are stealing democracy from us, and we are not accepting. And Imamoglu, he bases himself on the political philosophy of Basoi. And Basoi is saying it's impossible to fight evil with evil. You cannot succeed against those who arm themselves by arming yourself. You can transform with love. There's love again. Love can be a strong force. Connect with people on the other side. Try to understand them and talk with them. So that's very dialogical. That's Imamoglu. And that's why Erdogan is afraid of him, very much afraid, because this is such a big power. And that's very hopeful. That so millions of people are protesting. It's uncertain where it comes. Hope is uncertain, but I feel the hope. Yeah. And dialogue is a practice of hope for me. It's practicing. It's doing it that makes the difference. And that's why I also Peter needed it to have John and Jim. John with his listening in a way that recognizes, realizes the world of the other. And Jim with his performance of practice, enhancing the repertoire of therapy with children and families, also very active in the doing. So there you see also the two sides of our network, I think. I'm nearly there, but there's a hopeful thing, and I asked Eva. Yeah? You go ahead.
Thank you so much, Justine. Very emotional now, and thank you for sharing all of this. One thing that I can connect to when we spoke last night and this morning when you asked me to share with the audience is that my body also remembers this dialogue that we facilitated in 2010 in Srebrenica. So there were Dutch soldiers from the city of Tilburg who were present in Srebrenica in July of 1995 when the genocide took place. And in the beginning of the 2010, they reached out to us in the organization I worked at the time, expressing the wish to meet mothers of Srebrenica and to come back to Srebrenica for the first time after 1995. And I could talk for hours about that experience, but it was a hard thing in the beginning to set up. Of course, that was also the year when the Dutch government opened up the classified documents about the involvement in the war in Bosnia. So there was a lot of political narratives around it. And in Mothers of Srebrenica was saying that it's too painful for them to meet the soldiers. They were still blame on the responsibility of their role in the enabling genocide. But then I came to idea to call my friend from Belgrade, who worked a lot with war veterans and the victims, and I told him, look, Milane, you need to come because I cannot do this without you. And so we joined our forces and managed to organize that meeting with Mothers of Srebrenica and Dutch soldiers. One thing that struck me the most is that how young these soldiers were when they were in Srebrenica. They were 20 years old, 21 years old. When they came, they didn't have much information where they are coming and what their role exactly is going to be. And of course, as a citizen of Bosnia, at the time I had a lot of prejudices about it, right? I didn't know their story. I knew our story. And so when the dialogue started, it was a lot of anger. There was a lot of blame. There was a lot of request from the mother's side to know the truth, to get the answers. But once the introduction started and once the soldiers started telling their stories, and especially when they shared how old they were at the time, that froze the dialogue. Because for many of the mothers who were sitting there, that connected to the ages of their son that were killed during the genocide. And in the moment when they realized that these were the boys of 20, 21 years old at the time, they recognized their sons. They were no longer soldiers. They were human beings, living beings. And I come to what Tom and Kai discussed yesterday, right? How in the dialogue, when you start from your emotion and you share your personal story, the anger and the frustration kind of goes down and you are able to talk to another human being. And it was a really transformative experience. It was something that from the sides of the Mothers of Srebrenica, they said that it was very important for them to hear their story. And it was important for them to be able to see them as human beings rather than those responsible. On the other side, for the soldiers, it was also important to get forgiveness and understanding. And my body remembers that I puked for 5 minutes after that. Because not only that we were moderating, but I was also interpreting. And to be able to transfer the voice of mothers through English interpretation to others, I had the entire emotional drama inside of me, as if I was the one speaking to them. So it was a really, really great experience. And in nowadays, the Memorial Center of the Genocide in Srebrenica is the one who facilitates those encounters, and they are still happening. So thank you for allowing me to share this experience, really. Yeah.
I'm so happy, Eva. Yes, when I heard from Eva that she was part of it, the reconciliation in Srebrenica, I thought she has to tell about it. Yeah. And it's so hopeful that even after genocide, people can listen to each other and connect and cry together and realize we are all struggling human beings. Yeah. I'm nearly there. This, for me, the Sarajevo roses are also such a wonderful and hopeful way of keeping the memories alive. Call them roses and creating futures this way. For me, they are really very impressive. And this conference is a practice of hope for me. The world needs it. And as I said the first day, let's reach out to other communities and believe that we can do it. I will never give up. I will never. No. And I hope you won't, because we are heading a more difficult time, I'm afraid. But keep hope and keep together, and also be an activist. Try making it happen. Thank you very much, and thank the organizers. Thank you very much.
Thank you for never giving up, Justina. Thank you for this unbelievable experience. I'm always ready to be mesmerized whenever I will hear you talk, even if it's for 5 minutes or for longer. This was special for me as well personally, since we are sharing personal matters. I was born 400 kilometers south of here in Albania, and in Kosovo the Albanian nationals suffered as well a conflict that was not different from here. As a child of 90s, I also remember the news day in, day out from what was happening in Sarajevo. I was really impressed by how you held together the pain, the personal and the collective pain of those memories, as well as the hope. You managed to weave in hope. You managed to weave in the perspective of future and of healing. That is so much part of the process of coming out of here. I just really liked when you mentioned this was the last war. This was not the only war. And the region, unfortunately, has seen many wars. So much so that the region has mastered the art of survival. And it has elaborated it into songs, into poetry. Survival has become such a value. Sometimes at the detriment of happiness. It has become a greater value, survival, than happiness. For which I even more credit your persistence in hope. We're going to open to some questions, but I have one of my own. I'll take advantage of being here and ask the first. Back home, where another war, as I said, took place, geographically and chronologically very close to the war in Bosnia, there is a huge societal debate that weaves into personal relationships of taking sides. And it links to loving one's enemy or inviting one's enemy into dialogue. Because somehow that feels like a betrayal to the pain of those who went through it, the betrayal of those who lost somebody, the betrayal of the future that we never had and we deserved, those children of the 90s. Some of us are here. And very much would like to ask you, how does one navigate loyalty and the task that we have to look to the future?
I think without reconnection, there will be no future. That's what Desmond Tutu said in South Africa, the Truth and Reconciliation Committee. If we cannot relate to each other, what happened in Srebrenica was relating, you have no future. You keep in your bitterness. And of course, you can only, these mothers in Srebrenica, they started to blame, to be angry, to say, that was so terrible. It ruined my life. It ruined the life of my children. And so many years are taken away. Our husbands, our brothers are taken away. And we are still mourning, and we're still very angry. That's important. It's important that the pain can be there. Not to go, okay, we reconnect. No, that's not possible. So you have to make space for the pain, for the tears, and maybe after that, and not with force, and not then the reconciliation will happen, because we cannot control it and it's uncertain. But I cannot see another way of creating a future together. We need to realize we are all struggling human beings. And maybe there is also evil in the world. Yeah? I wouldn't at the moment, no. So it's more that we have to reconnect to the masses and what not to be, for instance, to say it in an easy way, to be angry with all the people that voted for Trump. No, I want to understand it. I want to question that. Why did you do that? I can be incredibly angry with Trump, yeah, of course, but not with all the people around, not with the big community. And that's, we need to find ways to relate, have dialogues, in order to create futures. That's what I think.